also see a lot of blue chip clients mentioned here, Britam, Citibank, Barclays. I mean, I could go on and on, KRA amongst others. So, you know, she's an executive coach who has a lot of experience and has worked with a large number of people. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Angie, before I ask the question. And then I also have Peril John Alubbe here, who is also a leadership consultant, trainer and speaker, and author. If I'm not wrong, I've seen your books outside as well. That's right. Yeah. And so you make sure you pass by and pick up a copy on your way out. And he's done work in the lines of business, family, leadership, change, and personal development. He publishes a newsletter called Anchored, which is also concerned about, you know, setting a solid foundation in any undertaking that you do. I can see he's an MSc Governance alumni of International Leadership University and runs leadership dialogue programs at the campus monthly. And you also sit on the board of Gilead Foundation, a non-profit interested in health, shelter, and education. So please give them a hand to encourage them. And I'll start with a general question. You have some of the smartest professionals in this country in this room. When I was walking in, I don't have a doctor in front of my name. I was feeling very intimidated by being surrounded by very many. Then I thought, there's no safer place I could be in the country right now than here. Because if I just collapse, there'll be, I'm sure there'll be a panel discussion on the best way to go forward. And it will probably be the best treatment that anyone can ever receive in this country. Yeah, where there'll be one who's prescribing, another one will dispense, the other one will administer. You don't even need to waste time, you know, going forward. So really we're in a distinguished panel of people. But with a group like this, you know, we know the schedules of doctors, pharmacists, and nurses. You almost don't clock in and clock out. So there's work-life balance challenges. Most of the times you're called to go beyond the call of duty. Even when you start to fight for your rights, what do people do? They blame you because they think, you know, them they can do business and get paid. But for you people, you say an oath. And therefore it's an obligation, whether or not money is entering your account or enough, that you go ahead and do it. And so it's a very complex, you know, sector to be in, and many challenges. And I just wanted to place it to you. How do professionals like this care for themselves, but also develop themselves and prepare themselves for the challenges of impacting the sector in the country? Because you see we have many issues. I don't know who would like to go first. Yeah.
Well, it's really a great honor to be here and a great pleasure. And as I was thinking and preparing for this, I was thinking leaders are the same everywhere. So when we're all leaders in our own right, in one way or another, in whatever profession that we're practicing or executing. So it's the same lessons that, by the grace, I've been able to speak to leaders on the same all over the world. So I was just thinking about it, and I really love what you said. Actually, we're in the right place. This is the right place to get ill right now where we are, because of all the expertise that's in the room and the kind of knowledge that you have. But sometimes I was wondering, I think when that happens, that we're really good at on one end, then we don't balance out the other ends. So every time I get to speak to leaders, I say the first thing that comes to mind for me is that in all 8 aspects that make up humanity, each aspect needs a plan. And therefore I was going to say, let's say in this room we have Hindus, Muslims, Christians, atheists, whatever it is that you believe. I think the first place for me that I've learned is the spiritual place. There has to be a centering, because there's something that spirituality does. It centers you, it centers everything else around you, it like provides a center. So that would be one way. And then I'm thinking about our mind. What are we doing in terms of the soul? Because man is made up of the soul. What are you doing in terms of your mind, your will, your emotions? And it was amazing that Dr. Kitulu talked about emotions, because you have to have empathy, but then not have empathy at the same time. It's like an oxymoron. Because I don't want to give it, if you get involved with every patient, then who are you going to be at the end of the day? But you have to get involved and not get involved. But it's amazing, even for me, I've learned from you. I love the fact of being present in the room. Be present for that 1 minute. That minute that you have, that you need to bring everything to it. But are we taking care of our emotions? Very, very important, you know? Maybe your mind, because you're well-read and well-versed and you have to keep up with what's happening. But what about your emotions and your emotional health? And what about your will? And then I was thinking physically. You see, I always tell people everywhere that I go, that I've learned that even the fact that you can all tell I have a problem with food, a food challenge, is, you can't tell. Can you tell? So, but I've always understood that's a leadership issue. Even as I engage in eating all the wrong foods, it is a leadership issue. Because physically as well, are we taking care of ourselves? Are we taking care of ourselves physically? And I think it's even something that's just like maybe 3 times a week. It doesn't even have to be an hour. It could be 20 minutes, 3 times a week. Are we doing that? And then after physical, what comes after physical? A social aspect and engagement. Actually, what I love most about this conference and this setup today is that you're getting to interact with people that you don't usually interact with. Sometimes I think that the healthcare sector, you just look in. It's all in. You're all in. Is it silos? All of you are in silos. But this is so encouraging to see that you're integrating, that you're trying to work together. And I'm always amazed that something like this, people wonder, what's in it for me? What's going to be the benefit? But number one, you're going to network. Number two, you're going to maybe hear something. Because whenever I invest in myself, once a year, I attend a global conference. And it's an investment in me. Because here as a leader, everybody's making a demand on me. But this is my one time when I get to get away and nobody's making a demand. I love that it's in another time sphere. So they don't even call me. You know, it's amazing how people are. When you're here and you're available, your phone is ringing 24 hours, 5 days. Every day the phone is on dial. When I'm away, because it's a different time zone, the calls subside. The messages subside. And then I'm always wondering, so you're able to take care of yourselves. But immediately I jet back in the country, everyone is calling you again. So what does that tell me? That you can also make your time when you're away, when you shut down that phone. Because everybody tries to make it an emergency, but is it really an emergency? It doesn't have to be an emergency. You dictate, listen, this is my time out, this is my time out zone. So for me, I have to leave the country. But I'm saying, even coming here today, I promise you by the time you leave that door and everybody has spoken, there's something you're going to take out from this coming together. I was sitting at lunch with somebody who just told somebody about a conference that's happening tomorrow, something about the World Bank, and bam, they're in. So already there's a change. So you can't also see this kind of investment as you're wasting your time. You're not wasting your time. Something important is taking place here today. You're networking, you've taken time out. You're going to learn something that you probably would not have learned. And I know that there will be at least one takeout. So that's the social aspect and social engagements. I think at the same point I had felt like I wanted to say that we don't enjoy the process. We're always trying to get somewhere. We're always saying, this is where I want to be. So it's like when I get there, then I'll enjoy myself. But you haven't enjoyed the journey. You haven't enjoyed the process, because you can't just look back one day and it's all done. You've got to enjoy even that moment when you're trying to attain whatever it is that you want to attain. Sit down and enjoy they say smell the coffee and smell the roses and enjoy the coffee. Just enjoy the ride and enjoy the journey, and don't just look at the end product, because what happens at the end? Somebody up here said about when I think one lady, she will speak about legacy, but are you leaving a piece of yourself in this world? I think that's very, very important. What are you leaving? And will generations that come after you, because I really think about generations, will they know you? Will you leave a touch of you? I mean, I'm always thinking somebody needs to write a book. You're all very clever people, like I said, very well educated. But does anybody know you? Who knows you? And are you putting you on paper? Because I'm sure you've written many theses and many documents that I cannot even begin to pronounce. Yes? But I've written about you. When 100 years from today, will your grandchildren, your children, what will they know about you? That you were here and had a crazy time in the marketplace? Yes, you treated a few people who probably don't even care, unfortunately. Then, what about you? Who are you? And I don't know whether this is the part I felt like telling you. There's a very important lesson that I learned last year. That I'm enough. And you've got to know that you're enough. What are we always trying to strive towards? You're enough. And enough is for me, where I am now, and with what I'm doing now. And I may have a plan and things that are moving forward, but am I enjoying this moment? So where was I socially? And then your profession as well. I think a lot of people...
To be better, do better for the sake of the people around us. And that means laying down so much, at times going through that suspension season, and at times just, not knowing what will happen. So we have to conquer fear.
I think just listening to the two of them, beyond having a health panel that can give me the best medical care, I'm thinking of doing a panel of coaches, because I think the problems I have in my life will require both of them to tag team to be able to, untangle everything that's happened. I think I'll open up the floor for just 2 questions because of time. We started a bit late, and I can see one question here, and I'll be fair, gentlemen. Okay, so I'll take those 2. I need someone to assist me with the mic. Yes, thank you. We can start here.
So, what's the question?
Yeah, right here at the end. Just tell us your name, and then you can ask what you want to ask the question.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Ogaja. Most recently, I was in charge of health in Kisumu County. And one of the questions I wanted to ask the panelists is, what is your view about this thing called integrity? Because that's one thing that when we're in that environment, and I've been through a number of trainings where integrity was like a big discussion. You say, what is integrity? You said you could consider it's like honoring yourself as the word you give. So when you promise something, you do it whether you feel like it or not, but you gave your word. But you find a lot of us in this country, including professionals, we have our professional standards, but we veer off our professional standards. We know there are things we are not supposed to do, yet we still do them. And I don't know what you see in Kenya of today, how we can really transform the way we look at things, the way we look at ourselves. We don't need any more laws. We don't need any more, maybe even training in a sense, because we already know some of those things, especially if you're in a spiritual environment. We get so much from our spiritual books, whether it's the Bible or the Quran or whatever it is, yet we still do the wrong thing. So I just wanted to get a sense from you to see how do you see us transforming this way of looking at things, and where people know that they're not supposed to do the things, yet they continue to do them. And so you see the patients will come and complain, Dr. X did this, or pharmacist Y did that. And I was just looking at this recent case of this unfortunate lady who went for some cosmetic surgery, and something terrible happened, and she ended up losing her life. And when you look at us as a group of professionals that had in the other panel, we're a team. So how do we maintain the integrity of the team so that we do what we know to do without cutting corners?
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's a gentleman here.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. My name is Dr. Michael Mwinamo. I am a member of Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya and also a member of NEC, National Executive Council. I'm also a lecturer at the University of Mombasa. Now, whatever has just been said here is really something that carries a lot of weight in terms of humanity, just humanity, not even professions or anything. Yeah, I think for me it has really touched me because it's something that also I teach a bit of psychology apart from everything else that I teach. And I see a disconnect between everything that we learn and technology and everything else that moves at a very fast pace. So my question is, how do we get people back, especially the young professionals? How do we get them back to the path of leadership, given the environment and the reality that we live in? Technology has taken over. Reality is occupying a very small space right now. So how do we get back to that? And of course, there was a conference that was mentioned. I don't know whether I got the right name. Stack conference. I don't know if I got the right name. Yeah.
Yes, Stack conference.
Yeah. When is that conference, and what exactly is this conference about?
Okay, thank you very much. Now pass the mic.
Thank you. Those are lovely, amazing questions. I'll begin with our dear lecturer's question on how do we get people back? How do we... And I'll answer it in the form of a study that was done by Nestle. Nestle wanted to introduce coffee in Japan in the 50s, in the 60s. But Japan is a tea drinking society. And they got consultants, they got people to come in and try to do everything they needed to do so that they can begin selling their products in Japan. And they tried everything and it couldn't work. Until they brought in a consultant who had a very unique manner. He would go down to the people and he would really live with them, stay with them, and get to know really what is it that causes them to tick. And all these experiences were then documented in a book called Culture Code, which you can get online. And he simply came to the conclusion that there are codes that go within us as we go through life. And that's why when you come from a different part of the earth, you have different inclinations from other people. And these things are simply things that are oriented within us. So he came back to the people of Nestle and he suggested to them, you cannot sell coffee to this generation of people because they are already coded. But you can try. But it won't work as well as if we can give you a strategy where you can begin with the 1, 2, 3-year-olds and you can start introducing a coffee flavor in the desserts that they take. Don't give them caffeine, just put the flavor in the 1, 2, 3-year-olds. And as they grow, they are going to get the flavor, the taste, and all this. As we speak right now, Nestle sells over $100 billion of coffee in Japan. And this was done in the 70s. It has taken almost 30, 40 years for it to do that. And that's what's working. We have no easy solutions of how to go back. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. To me, the answer is training. And we must start training early. You must start with your 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. They must start attending leadership classes. They must have a coach. They must sit in mentorship sessions. It is something I've done with my children. I'm a father of 2, a daughter and a son. My daughter is 21 and my son is 18. And I have seen the impact of it in terms of them going into different places, expressing themselves, and whichever championship or whatever they come into, that mentorship has really counted. And to me, that is a profound answer. Then just to touch a little, because I know Angie has so much to say about integrity. Our dear doctor from Kisumu, the word integrity means one. And the word of God says, if your eye is single, then your body is full of light. But it says if your eye is evil, then of course, there's a lot of, it also says that a house divided cannot stand. Integrity or lack of integrity for me is conflict on the inside on 2 ideologies, philosophies, or beliefs that keep fighting within an individual. And eventually you see the practice of that division or conflict on the outside, where somebody does not keep their word, where somebody is not accountable, answerable, because there's already a conflict on the inside. And this is a place where we must begin and ask, where is that conflict? If you don't see integrity in a team, it means that team is not united. And they are working from different doctrines and ideologies. They must come on the same page first in terms of what they stand for, and then practice will simply flow out of what they stand for. And for me, that's the area where we need to invest the most. We speak very little about philosophy, ideology, and we say we are Democrats. What do we mean when we say we are Democrats? We say we are socialists. We say we are Christians. We don't know that Christianity has a doctrinal basis. And if you're going to ascribe to anything, first and foremost, you must understand what that doctrine is. Thank you.
I'll start with the Unstuck conference. It happens in August. You can see there's a lady right there behind you with a black and white top. You can talk to her, daughters. and she'll tell you more about it. So it happens every year in August. And the conference is about getting leaders unstuck. Then you begin to give out the answers yourself. And then the only thing that helps with the coaching is what I talked about application, is that as you give out the answers, they put them around a timeline, and therefore it's actionable. Therefore, what I love about coaching is it causes movement to happen. So whereas you could have been stuck with something for a long time within yourself, that you want to do this, but it's like something's always stopping you. When you engage a coach, that something becomes alive and flows into action. So that's what. So the Unstuck Conference is a conference where we come and we have other leaders share their stories, and it helps people to get unstuck. On the leadership question, I think it's a really amazing question, and I felt like 3 answers came to mind. Number one, I was amazed to find out that when the United Kingdom wanted to change a culture amongst their youth, I didn't know that's how David Beckham came to light. So it was actually discussed at Parliament, and they said, let's find an influencer or a role model, because their young men had started sagging their pants, and that's the culture they wanted to change. And of course, for a British person, that is just a no-no. The British are extremely proper human beings and very conservative, and the American culture had begun to influence their children, and they said never ever. And I love that. You know, that's good. They take owners, they said not ours. So they said, let's identify this young man. What do British people gather around? It's football. So they decided to find this young man who's able to play football and really promote him in the social eye. So he was always well dressed, impeccably dressed, amazing wife, and they built a brand, and it worked. And the culture of the young British young men evolved now around David Beckham and Portia's wife. So I love that that's what they did. So they found an influencer. So in some cases, you can find an influencer who's going to make an impact, who's going to change the lives of those young people. And if we could, I think it would really work even for us, if we could find a young person who we can motivate around, and that people would love something about them. And you know, the generation that we are leading, that generation you're calling is millennials. And the one thing or 2 things that millennials want is authenticity. If you're not authentic and they can tell, they don't even want to know. So even then for you, the second step is, I always say, I was a good manager and leader, whenever a problem is presented, then you have to be the solution. So you're the solution, yeah? So you act on what you have, and you begin to do something. Like now, 2 things came to mind. There's a gentleman, I think he's also in the UK, who has identified young men in Africa and their leaders. I think they're all boys. But what I loved is that he identifies 15. And then he invests in them and is raising them to be leaders. So when they asked him, why 15? I mean, it sounds such a small number compared to the spans of Africa. It's so huge, and the problems we have are so many. Why would you only choose 15 leaders? And he says, because leadership is not for everyone. You choose 15, you train them very well, and then they lead the rest. So that's something else. Is who around you also, or around us, can we input leadership into? So that they now become a leader. So like he's doing it with his children, I've done it with my daughter, and I've done it with other leaders, because I run a leadership forum. So who's immediately around you? I don't know why the other day I was thinking about this word. What's your scale? And what's your scope and your scale? Because it's personal to you. So do I have influence over 5? Do I have influence over 2? Do I have influence over 1? But if we each do our part, then it will make an impact. Because I think when you look at the problem, it's too compounded. For me, if I look at a problem like that, I become stuck. Like, how are we going to do this? But if I start with where I am and with what I have, and with the leaders who are around me, and I model, because that's the other thing that we need to do is model leadership. We cannot not model. You have to, people learn by observing you and by being around you. So like start hanging around with a few young people who can watch you even in your profession, even at your place of work. Because I always say, there's a job and a job description. We talked about job descriptions here today. But within every job description, there's another assignment. There's another humane, you said the word, humanity. There's another humane, I think the South Africans call it Ubuntu. There's something, there's a humane angle that you have to bring to your assignment every day. Who am I impacting and who am I talking to? And then there's another lady who I thought about, who for some reason she decided to start, I don't know what to call it, she started impacting. She chose, I think, 17 young boys, 7 years old, and she's going to work with them for a period maybe of like 10 years. And they're only 17. But she's doing what she can do. And she started with them when they're 7 years old. And she has a program to run with them. So out of there will come 17 leaders who will make an impact. So I think if we look at the problem, it will be, if we look at it just with what we're going to do with the whole generation, it's too much. Again, it's my thing of breaking down things into manageable bits. And then to answer you, I think integrity is back to the center. You see, we talked about whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, whether it's the Gita, the Quran, or the Bible that you ascribe to, that is what is going to center you. And that is where your values are drawn from. And I think we have the compounded effect of, or the compounded problem of being integrous, even if it's you by yourself. Even if you stand alone and you stand out, very soon everybody begins to know that you're the one who will not cross the line on integrity, and you make the impact that you can.
Thank you.